This question says the projected population of two states are shown in the graph, where X is the number of decades since 1980 and Y is the population in millions. What are the constraints on the domain and range? Choose all that apply. So first of all, let's talk about domain and range. So domain is your X values. So when it's talking about the constraints on your domain values, it's saying what are the constraints on your X values? So what are the limits of those? And then for range, it's just the opposite. With range, we're talking about the Y values. So it's important that you know the difference between domain and range. Take the time to memorize that because you will need to know that. So the range is the Y values. So if I want to look at my domain values, that's looking at the X values. So that's down here on the bottom axis. And I can see this is decades since 1980. It starts at 0, and it wouldn't make sense for it to be less than 0 or be negative. And then it just keeps going up, and there's really no limit on how far this could go. So the domain, the X values can go from 0 to infinity. So we would say X is greater than or equal to 0. So let me write domain next to this one. That's where that one comes from. And then similarly, we can look at the Y values. And the Y values, this is population in millions, goes from 0, and then it just keeps going up. And there's really no limit on how high it could be. So it's the same thing. The Y value is greater than or equal to 0. And that would be our range. All right, so make sure you know the difference between domain and range. And I will point out that so if you look at like answer A, X is greater than or equal to 1980, yes, this point represents 1980. So that's kind of true, but these X values are these numbers here. These are the X values. So the X values start at 0, not at 1980, although that's what it represents. Okay, so just be careful of that. So keep up the good work and you will master the math.